I think I'll probably just get brighter depending on how long this goes. But and we've been recording, so we can just start whenever you want. So why don't you go ahead and when you're talking, I can do this, right?
Right. Yep.
And then when I talk, I can just kind of come back in.
Yeah, and it kind of the distance, you can hear the distance in the voice, but it's not like earth shattering. It's not like you're totally gone and I can't hear you. It's just much better, more clear when you're closer to the mic.
And then you can't really see what's on that board, right?
Well, unless I put my glasses on. So hold on.
Well, I can't see what's on that board from this angle.
I'm going to full screen just to see what. Yeah, I can't even read what's on the screen.
Yeah, so it's not my stuff, but I don't.
It's good then.
It's a diagram of somebody's designing an application of some kind, so it's fine. I don't even know what it means.
That's good.
Take all this shit. Welcome to Mark Aylward Radio. All right, so what's going on? You got you have an interview scheduled, and the last conversation we had, you responded, and the response
back is it's an informal meeting with the owner of the company and his wife.
Okay.
And it's again just going back to what I've learned from you is about really asking questions and communicating. Like I thought I knew what the job was based on what my friend told me. The company's called Zymogen, and they manufacture supplements and they sell them directly to physicians, right? So, thank goodness I asked, because they now have a new division, which I understood it was a new division, but who knew what the new division was?
Yep.
It's actually called Zymoprint. And so they have a whole printing division like Vistaprint. So they're starting a new company that has nothing to do with supplements. I thought it was like packaging for the supplements. So, again, reaching out to you to say, Mark, I need to reply to this email, and, the thing to do is for me to dig deeper. The first is to reach out to you. And then when I dug deeper, she's like, oh, it's just an informal meeting. You're going to meet the CEO, the founder of the business, and his wife. And, there's no agenda. And it's for, she's like, she put a link. She's like, the link is Zymoprint. And I open up Zymoprint, and it looks like it's beautiful. I mean, everything on there, they've got, marketing, they've got their business cards, which they actually call it business assets instead of business cards. It's like ingenious because they're really creative. And so you got business cards, letterheads, envelopes, note cards. It's like going to Vistaprint. They actually have then wine bottles for labels and, labeling type stuff and packaging stuff. And the reason why that this opportunity even came to me is Ryan, which I had lunch with on Monday, which again, we rekindled our relationship based on, some coaching that you gave me, like reach out to your friends, let them know that you're looking for, a job. And so I was at lunch with Ryan, and he says, hey, you're good, right? And he meant like job wise. And I'm like, well, not really. Yeah. And he said, oh, well, my friends over at Zymogen are looking for someone. And he says they're starting a new division. And so again, I reached out to Ryan. He sent my resume into these folks, and Ryan knows me. He probably knew more about that it was print related. And he may have expressed that to me, but I thought it was like print, packaging, private labeling of their products going to physicians. But it's a totally different business altogether. And
may I ask you a couple questions?
Yep. So
why do you think the wife is joining you?
I think she's part of the business. Like, it's, I think it's, it's not what you know, but who you know. So like Ryan is friends with them. So I think they're bringing me in as in a capacity of wanting to meet me. See, I would imagine that if they like me, then I would go to the next level, which would be going to HR. So I'm actually going above HR, but once they, meet with me, and Ryan was saying that they're very, it's like it is a family business. So
So my point, I guess, or one of my points, two of my points that come to mind. One is, what a wonderful way to go in from the top down as opposed to the HR up, right?
Right.
And that's the whole idea of the strategy of reaching out to friends, because friends don't necessarily always put you in touch with HR. They put you in touch with whomever they know.
Right.
And so that just changes the game, with all due respect to HR. And then the second thing is, I just asked you why the wife is going to be there, and essentially your answer is you don't know.
Right.
And so you're assuming some things. And I had a meeting yesterday. I had 2 meetings yesterday with people that I was coaching. One that was starting his own business or contemplating starting his own business, and the other was a young lady who I've been coaching for a while, who's in the process of securing a job. She's accepting an offer today after a couple of weeks of coaching, and a lot of anxiety on her part. And with each one of them, and I need to do this somewhat delicately with them because I don't know them as well as I know you.
Right.
But every time I ask them a question, their tendency, if you will, was to give me an answer that they didn't know, as opposed to saying, you know what, I don't know.
Right.
And so the danger in interviewing or negotiating or starting your own business, seeking out partners or venture capital, whatever the situation is, if you don't know, dude, say, I don't know.
Right.
Because
Yep. Got it. Well, Mark, the reason why I'm here with you is because it's like obvious, but we forget. It's like I think, oh wait, I don't know, but I want to prove that I do know. But
put your mic closer to your mouth when you talk. That was very substantially different. But I'm teasing you on some level, but it's also a really significant part of how I help people, and I get reminded of it all the time. Because I have to say to people, you just spoke for like 3 minutes and all you should have said was, I don't know.
Right.
But the most important part of that is, if you're doing anything that you're doing based on an assumption, you're probably wrong, right? Your actions are wrong. Your words are wrong because you're guessing. And so just keep that in mind actually during the interview as well, because I find it extremely helpful when I'm talking to salespeople or interviewing salespeople to hire them. When they say they don't know, it's refreshing to me. It's a sign of integrity, right? Most people kind of think that it's weakness. Oh, I have to know. No, you don't. No, you don't. Does that make sense? Yeah, I can't. You just shut your mic off.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is, like, I know that, like, in my experience, but it's not only that I forget, but it's like I want to prove that I know, but I can't prove something that I don't know.
That's right. No, and listen, I get it. I do it. Everybody does that sometimes because, and maybe because of what I do, or just the fact that I'm, been around for a while, old. I've seen over time how that humility, if you will, and honesty is much more refreshing than speculating on, or pretending to know the answer. But it's in our DNA to be like, oh, I need to know that, or I don't want to sound like an idiot or stupid or whatever. But it's like, it's the opposite of that. So I'm just reinforcing that with you, because I think it's an integral part of everything that you do in the interview process. Anyway, enough.
I totally agree with you on that.
Okay. So what's going on? What do we need to cover in this call?
I think we just did.
Cool. See ya.
Seriously, I think like that. Like, we're going to go over some other stuff, but I really believe that was like the golden nugget.
Okay.
Like, go in there and just say, really be conscious and aware of saying, like, I don't know, and then the next step is, but I'll get the answer. Let's work on this.
Can I want to play around with where that mic is.
Yeah.
So move it.
Down, up, down.
Maybe
testing 1, 2, 3. Is that better?
That's much better. Okay. I don't know if that's inconvenient for you or not.
Well, I'm holding it here, so that's fine if it's okay with you. I don't know if it looks.
That sounds much better. It's just don't scratch it or rub it against your face, and we'll figure the sound thing out. I think acceptable is acceptable. I just, like you said.
Well, the lapel would be good. I think I have a lapel at the house, so I just need to pull it out of my little gadget
that right there, that configuration right there is great. And so, and we're talking back and forth, and I can edit some of this stuff out. That's fine.
Right.
And the reality of it is, we're figuring this stuff out. So,
right.
No, I think I think the notion of what you're doing, you're going to an interview in a position of complete discovery. I mean, you didn't even know until earlier when you discovered it was a new company, you were assuming that you knew the company. And, so all of this stuff, it's like, if you take the position of not knowing, now, if they gave you links to go look at stuff, or they gave you particular information about the job, if they gave you things, well, that eliminates some of those assumptions. But essentially, when they say to you, there's no agenda, you don't know anything. Right. So, but be comfortable in that position. That's okay.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, what comes up for me is that I really need to do my homework, because even though they may not have a written agenda, there's an agenda. They ultimately want to know what I know and what I don't know, even without, disclosing what's going on. So, I think it's going to make a world of difference that I've gone to Zyma Print and looked up and see that they, have business assets, not business cards.
Yep.
They're gonna realize that this guy's doing his homework. He's not just. Again, I was recommended by a friend, so some people could take advantage of that and say, "Yes, show up."
Yep.
I don't want to just show up. I mean, I want to show up, and I want them to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is our guy." Well,
and I'll bring you back to the story with the young lady yesterday. She and I spoke in great detail throughout the process, and the day before yesterday, they sent her a contract, and she'd been dealing with an internal recruiter. Actually an external recruiter, somebody like myself. So that representative wasn't even part of the organization. And I kept trying to impress upon her that you're getting not disinformation, but you're getting diluted information because there's a middle person involved. And I suspect that all of the tactics and strategies that I'm sharing with you are falling flat just because this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Right. And eventually this guy, she sent a list of questions to him that were just for him, right?
Yep.
And he turned around and sent them to the chief operations officer of his client. And his client basically said, "Oh, this chick's nuts. Like, what does she need to know all this stuff for?" And she had no intention of him sending those questions to her. But what happened is she was given the opportunity. The recruiter actually said, "I'm so sorry. I think I made a mistake." I'm like, "Yeah, you made a mistake. That was just stupid." Right. But it put her on the phone with the chief operations officer, and she got off the phone with the chief operations officer, and the whole world had changed. Everything was crystallized and clarified. And she's signing the document today. It was like, oh my gosh, that's just another example of she was dealing with lots of assumptions, misinformation. So, when somebody says to me, when I say, "What's the agenda?" and they say there is no agenda, maybe you have to accept that. But I'm like, really? You got an agenda? What are we going to talk about? But on the flip side, Alex, they're putting you in a position where you have now the ability to poke around when you get in there. You have the ability to say, or at least not knowing things is not your responsibility now. You can only know so much because they didn't tell you anything. So what do you want to, do you have like topics or questions, or how do you want to prepare for this? Because I can lead the conversation, or you can lead me.
Well, I figured it's going to be like a discovery. It's like getting to know, one another. I think that, they have my resume, and my resume has, like my credentials. Then they also got a recommendation from it's one of my best friends.
Yep.
And then he seems to know them pretty well. So I think like all the ducks are in a row in that respect. I just want to make sure and go in there really well, polished, again, all kidding aside, I need to just say I don't know if I don't know. I think that's like the golden nugget of this whole thing, because it is really discovery for both of us.
Well, let me in terms of guidance, let me go back to some of the fundamentals, because again, I'd rather be redundant than remiss. One of my favorite statements. Do you have a list of questions that you're going to bring with you?
I don't have them compromised yet. I just pretty much, yesterday I got the email from them, so back and then started, basically doing research.
Okay.
So I do need to compile my list of questions, and I'm going to write that down to remind myself.
Yeah. So 10, shoot for 10. And I think because you're dealing with limited information, I would be, just off the top of my head, I would say, what's the relationship with the print subsidiary versus the parent company? Or is that the relationship? Is it a parent company and this is a spinoff? Why did they spin this off? Why are they dealing with a new organization or developing a new line of products or services? What's the nature of that and relationship? And then, have they ever had a person in this position of selling for the print side of the organization? Are you replacing somebody, or is it a brand new position? Because those are two completely different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And if they're replacing someone, anytime you're interviewing for anything, and you get knowledge that you're replacing somebody, you want to know why that person's no longer there. Because that's a whole nother topic. But as you can well imagine, if they fired that person, what did that person lack? Because that's not something you want to bring. You want to be able to fill that gap, whatever that skill that was lacking. Or if the person left, now you potentially are dealing with cultural issues or compensation issues, or the company doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, there's the insight that you get when you find out why the position is open is very valuable. You can't always get that information, and you have to be careful about how you poke around at that.
Right.
But you start that conversation by saying, hey, is this a new position, or are we replacing somebody, or is it growth, or what's driving the need?
Right.
And then the answer to that can be very, very enlightening. So those are a few. That's what I'd want to know right out of the gate.
Right.
And so that gives you a couple of questions there. Do you have insight into the background of the people that you're talking to? Are they on LinkedIn, or do they have profiles on the site?
I need to pull that up because I have not gone there.
Okay. Always helpful, And I mean, and again, to kind of restate the obvious, where they went to school, where they're from, any insight that you can get where you might be able to find common ground. And if you guys have worked in the same industry, have you worked at the same company perhaps, or know people that have similar colleagues that you're not even aware of, so common ground is the purpose of that.
Right. Okay.
Has anybody talked to you about money?
No, not at all.
Do you remember our discussions about how to deal with money?
Yeah. I mean, that's I feel, and I want to repeat this to you, and then you can help polish this up. But it's like,
move your mic for me when you do.
I want to talk, go through the compensation with you so that I get polished. But like, you could tell me, but if I tell you, I think it's a little bit of rehearsal. But like, if they ask me what I want to make, for me, the first response back is, well, let's go over what are you looking for? What is, your, first of all, the job description, what are your expectations, I think are huge. So understanding what the job description, understanding what the expectation, is or are. And then, going back to, what's the industry standard for this position? Like, putting the ball back in their court, not giving them a number.
Yes. Well, that's absolutely the case.
Right.
Let me reframe that a little bit for you.
Okay.
But absolutely, you never want to lead. The first person to talk about money loses.
Right. Okay.
Every time. Okay. So what you suggested, the idea is sound. The phrasing, I might say something like, well, if they said to me right out of the gate without any information, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a great opportunity. Number one, I don't want to be changing jobs over the short term. I want like a cultural fit. I want the responsibility fit. I want the leadership potential and growth potential. It's really, to me, about the opportunity. I'm currently I've got multiple streams of income, and I've got a few things going on. Fortunately, I don't have to jump at the first thing, but the money really is secondary. I don't want to undersell myself, but the money is secondary to me. And if you'd be so kind, I'd also like to understand far more about like the responsibilities and expectations and in order for me to just toss out a number right now, I'd be misleading you. I need more information.
Right.
So you have to choose your own words for that.
Right.
But that's genuine. I mean, you don't know, right? If you want me to do X, Y, Z times 10, that's one number. If you want me to do X, Y, Z, that's another number. I mean, am I traveling all over the country? Have I got responsibilities to lead people? I mean, are the sales goals, really, really high? I mean, I can do all those things, but those are potentially different numbers, right?
Right.
That should make sense. That should make sense to everyone. It's about the timing of the discussion. Don't bring it up ever.
Right.
Let them bring it up. And when they do, your response should be dictated by how much you know and how much you don't know. Right? Make sense?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect.
So what other categories of, I got 100 million thoughts in my head. I don't want to overload you with stuff, but you got some research to do. You've got some questions to compile.
Yep.
You know not to bring up money and how to respond if it is brought up.
Yep.
And then I would invite you to go back, Alex, and watch my, have you ever watched my video? I think it's about 15 minutes, about 13 tips to crush a job interview.
I have not.
Okay. I will, you can find that on the 7pillarsglobal.com website. Probably, well, I'm just thinking if it's readily, I'll send you a link. Okay. I'll send you a link, and I'll when I post this, wherever I post this, I'll drop a link so people can get that if they want. It's the 13 things that I would most likely recommend to someone, no matter where they were going on an interview. And some of it might be redundant, but it goes into things like posture and money and bringing questions, and it's a fairly valuable little 15-20 minute video, and it's free.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll point you to that. And that's also something that you can point colleagues and friends to if you know anybody who's going on an interview. It might be a nice way to be introduced to me, without having to reach out to me directly. But
I'll put a little verb on my social media after I look at it. I'll basically say, hey, this I'm looking forward to the interview that I have, and this is really going to help me crush it.
Well, I mean, provided it's helpful, provided you like it, I suspect that you will. And then feedback would be welcome as well. Is there anything in terms of preparation, Alex, is there anything that you're concerned about or particularly anxious about, categorically?
Not at the moment. What I'd like to do is basically I took the information that you gave me. I wrote some notes while we were talking, and I'd like to reconvene on Monday. My interview with them is 2 or 3 o'clock on Monday. I have to look at my calendar. But if we could get together in the morning, what I'll do is then I'll have looked at your crush,
13 tips to crush the job interview. Yep.
And then, I'll put together my list of 10 things, and then we'll actually write out, not that I will carry this in, but I'll write out like a reply to the compensation. That way, I have the key words in there, because that's one of the things that I've really value in my communication with you is, you really bring those, I think, because I grew up learning English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get, in Spanish, you say confundido, confused on, what word to use. There's ambiance and ambulance, it's like, oh, they sound so close.
I get it. Yeah. The first time I took Spanish for 7 years, and the woman that instructed me for a couple of those years was from Cuba. Yeah. And she would take the English college board exam every year just to make sure that she was on the right track, and she aced it every time. She was awesome. But awesome. They say that we say things differently. Like, some of the Spanish stuff is backwards.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
From the English. So I get it. The other thing that kind of creeps into my head a little bit is the explanation of why you're looking and where you are. And that's really something that you want to be able to give that speech quickly. That should be like an elevator pitch, 30, 60 seconds. And it should never include excuses, or it should be personally accountable. It should be matter of fact. Right. And it should be very clear. It's never anyone else's fault. It's never a circumstance that's beyond your responsibility. It's never any of those things. It's, hey, you know, I jumped out of this job that I had for a number of years that I was quite good at because I wanted to pursue this entrepreneurial dream of opening up a yoga studio, and it didn't work out.
Yep.
So I've come back and I've pursued a number of different things kind of on an entrepreneurial level. And my buddy Ryan and I were talking the other day. I wasn't looking for you guys, and he suggested that you were looking for someone, and I had some familiarity with your organization, and I thought, yeah, well, that'd be foolish not to pursue this discussion and this opportunity. So that's kind of where I am.
Yep.
And you have to have that story down, you know, quickly, no excuses, succinctly, boom.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. Did you write all that down?
Yep, I do. I have notes.
Good. So you're good. Good boy.
Did I get a little star?
Doing your homework. Yeah, I'll catch up with you. Are you teaching tonight?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
So I'll catch up with you over the weekend, or whenever. You know, call me whenever. Are you sufficiently prepared for this thing now?
Yes. Yes. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Yep. I'm prepared. Cool. I'm prepared to be prepared.
Okay. And if during your preparation, if anything comes up that you have questions about, give me a holler. But what day and what time is the interview again? I'm sorry.
Monday. It's either at 2 or 3. I need to look back at my calendar.
So just call me after, you know, when you're driving home or something.
Yep.
And we can do a quick little bit of feedback, and then we can set up another one of these calls to get the recording in a more comprehensive fashion.
Okay. Perfect.
All right, dude. Have a good weekend. Good luck.
You too.
All right. Peace.